All right, guys, ladies and gents, Jason Howman, Nathan Barnier here, and we've got Tom Leveen, more importantly. Gentlemen, welcome. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks, Nathan.
Thank you.
Now, Tom, with the risk of, I don't want to sound like I'm just reading off your CV here, brother, but Tom Leveen, ladies and gents, if you haven't heard of him, very, very successful, talented individual. We've got 9 books published, Stoker Award finalist, wrote for Spawn. In summing up, Tom, if I can, at least attempt to, writer, teacher, actor, director, creator, co-founder, punk rock skater, and all-round cool guy. We've got Tom Leveen. How do I go,
give that a round of applause.
I'll tell you, yeah, thank you. That was, I'll take it. I'll take all of it. It's all true. It's all true.
Actually, there's a question, Jace. Why don't we just get rid of the scripted stuff? But Tom, you're a big fan of Vans.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I just posted about that. Yeah, dude, I've been wearing Vans since high school. I mean, they're the quintessential skate shoe, and I am absolutely brand. I'm wearing them right now. I'm absolutely loyal to them. And it's one of the things I talked about recently for writers specifically, was to get really specific about the stuff that they're describing, that there's a difference between sneakers, your character wearing sneakers, or your character wearing Vans or Nikes or whatever. Like choosing something like that makes all the difference in the world, because there's a certain kind of person who wears Vans versus who wears, I've never owned a pair of Nikes. Nothing against Nike. Good brand, good shoe. I just don't wear them. I want to be associated with Vans. When people say, oh, that dude wears Vans. You know what I'm saying? It's so yeah, absolutely.
Do you think that's
it's an interesting one too? Oh,
go on,
sorry,
Jace, get in there.
I was just about to say, it's an interesting one too, Tom. I'm really big on the little things that can start a conversation. And one thing I do know about, especially that skateboarding, surfing culture, if you're wearing your brands like Vans and those kind of shoes around, I know Converse All-Star are very similar in the sort of punk rock metal sort of space.
Yep.
It's a great way for you to wear that badge of honor, so that somebody that's like-minded is going to notice that. And the amount of times that I've been at a gig, and because of the shoes I'm wearing or the shirt that I'm rocking, someone will come up and say, hey, dude, out of the blue, there's a new connection there, a kinship that I think is awesome. So yeah, certainly with the, I actually got, this is a little bit embarrassing to admit, but I got busted because I was wearing a pair of Adidas skateboarding shoes, just because I love the look. They're comfortable as I don't skate. And one of the guys that I work with, very good skater, he's like, dude, do you skate? And I was like, man, I've got to admit it, I don't. I'm a poser, but I love these shoes. So we still had a good chat about it. But yeah, I hear exactly what you're saying, and it's very cool. I love that. I
have a broad selection of Social Distortion T-shirts that I wear pretty regularly. That's my band that I love and appreciate and follow. And I was getting I think I was changing out the tires on my car. I had to take my car in to get new tires, whatever. And I walk in and the guy's like, hey, how can I? Oh, hey, man, what's going on? Like, you know what I mean? I'm like, what? You got really familiar all of a sudden. What's going on? And he flashes his shirt and he's got the Social D Skelly on his arm. Like, bro. I'm like, oh, cool, man. How's it going? I can't prove that I got a discount, but I think I got a discount. You know what I mean? So it's always, you got to be proud, man. You got to represent whoever your people are.
Yeah, I love it.
I like it. Hey, I want to bring up one thing. I heard you talk about, you had a VHS video camera back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
You still run that?
I still have the tapes, as a matter of fact. Yes, I do. And I do have a VHS VCR. I got to get a new one, though, because they don't make the good ones anymore. Like, it's hard to get, like, the 40-pound ones that you could actually, like, beat up on a little bit. But, yeah, I still have probably about, I'm going to guess, 100 or so odd videotapes from high school. And they weren't movies. They were just literally, we just carried this thing around with us everywhere we went. So it's, 200 and some hours of me and my friends just being me and my friends and all the stuff. I mean, we be blackmailed quite easily with most of the stuff that's out there. But one of the things I've been working on recently, I need to get back to it, was a show on YouTube called My High School X, where I was taking little sections of that for 12 to 15 minutes and kind of piecing those together as a show, like a nostalgic show, Gen X kind of thing, where it's like, God, we were so stupid, and yet nothing has changed, man. Like it's really fun because every time I go to do a school visit here, the technology has changed and the fads, everything is very different from when I went to high school, of course, but fundamentally high school is still the same thing now as it was, 20 years ago, 25 years ago, whatever. It's everybody's worried about the same thing. Everybody's talking about the same thing. It's just these slight little tweaks. So it's not as different as older people think it is. And it's interesting to kind of delve into that.
Do you think there's more stress in high school today than there was?
I would tend to say yes. Some of the struggles and stuff that students are dealing with are very similar. Why is it? And every time we do a school visit, inevitably after the bell rings, everybody leaves for their next class, whatever. 3 or 4 kids will come up afterwards and they'll just start spitting out their life story to me. And very frequently it's, does anybody care? Does anybody know who I am? Does anybody see me? Why isn't my mom home tonight? It's this terrible, terrible stuff like that that we were hearing in high school too, or experiencing very frequently in high school. So in terms of the stress level, is it worse? I will tell you that the thing about the technology now and obviously internet and cell phones and everything that we all have, if you are having issues at school, on the one hand, you could go home at 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, whatever, and you'd be done until the next day. So you kind of got a break, you got a breather. Now you got your phone with you and you're on that thing. People can access you 24/7. And the irritating part to me is when I hear adults or teachers or whoever say, well, we'll just put your phone down. I'm like, you put it down, you son of a bit. Like, what? Like, yeah, easy for you to say. What is that? Totally unfair. So that part I think is definitely more stressful. And I do wish people outside of the educational sphere would recognize that. I think teachers get it because teachers are seeing it and dealing with it. I'm not sure parents have figured out a lot, not all of them, but a lot of parents I think have not yet picked up on that and have not yet. We get so dismissive of our teens, I think, certainly here, and that irritates the crap out of me. I will go on all day long talking about how we need to treat our kids and our students better than we do. Just drives me absolutely crazy.
Well, man, we got nothing on today, brother. I'm aware of your time, but look, just on that, I know I've you've spoken about it before, but the role of parents with their kids, and the dismissive way that I guess they instill their own, beliefs, and you've brought up a mantra a couple of times: words matter. So is that
Yes,
is that
absolutely.
more common than people realize?
It feels like it. It certainly feels like it. I think we and I'm guilty of it myself. And my kids aren't in high school yet. I've got a 2-year-old and an 8-year-old currently, and it's very easy to, I don't say speak out of turn, but like to say things that we don't realize are going to stick forever. Like right now, I could ask you guys right now. I don't know what the cultural differences are between our countries, but like I would be willing to bet who your first grade or your first class teacher was. You probably know their name right now, right? And you probably know whether or not, I'm assuming you're out of high school, so what your first car was. If you guys, what was the first car you drove? Did you go to the big dance, whatever the big social event was? Did you go? If not, and if you did, who did you go with? Like, all that stuff, right? Doesn't matter how old you are. You can be 80 years old. You can rattle that stuff off, right? That's because our brains are designed to do that. Throughout adolescence, our brains are built on an evolutionary way to remember stuff. That's how we stay alive. So I don't know what the hell I had for breakfast today, but I know all of my teachers from first grade on. I know if I went to prom, I know these things, and that's why when our parents or a teacher or somebody says something like "you're a bad boy" or you suck, which I've heard parents say to kids, which just like, how could you ever say that to your kid? That, even if it's just the one time, that's the time you're going to remember. That's the message you're going to remember. And you take that with you, even after your brain has stopped developing, which isn't around, until age 25, it turns out. So yeah, do those words matter? Absolutely. The difference between, like at our house, we are very, very specific about saying that was a bad choice versus you're a bad kid. Very different message right there, and impacts how you grow up a lot. So yeah, words absolutely matter in that sense.
Cool. I mean,
now I'm revved up. Let's go. I'm ready.
Yeah,
No, I
man.
love
Like,
this.
I'm fired up.
Thought Jason's going to
funny
jump
that,
in. Yeah, there he is.
yeah, I just, sorry, Tom, I was just completely absorbed with that. And as you were sort of rolling off on that, I've written down Miss Gott. She was my year one teacher. 4x4 Corolla was my first car. And I went to, we have a thing called the debutante ball. Or I was going through late high school in central Queensland, sort of little country town. And I took Georgia Price to the deb ball. So shout outs to Georgia.
That's right. Hey, Georgia.
Hey, Georgia.
It's interesting that you bring all of that up, because the other thing that rolled on from me remembering those three particular things that you brought up as an example is that I can also remember these knee-jerk things, and I realize them now as an adult, that they were knee-jerk reactions from adults that I had a lot of respect for, that I looked up to. There were things that they said that stuck in my mind that were knee-jerk reactions, but as a grown adult now, almost 40, I still have these weird moments where I'll hear that word or I'll hear that phrase.
Oh yeah.
And it gives me that sense of dread, or, you know, and you can, I guess in the last 5 or so years, especially for me, I've focused a lot on mindfulness and understanding how the brain works, as well as, you know, and how you absorb information and deal with trauma and grief and all those kinds of things. But it's funny that you know, like you said, those words, they feel like they feel like a bullet or an arrow. Like as soon as you hear it, you feel that pang, that instantaneous sense of that pain that you felt at the time when that was initially fired off at you. And as much as I know they were knee-jerk reactions, and it's nothing against the people that I care about that have said these things, but you're right, they don't realise that you know, that frustration that they felt, that the way that they delivered that line to you it's actually going to impact you for life. So.
It does.
I really like the way that you talk about how you speak with your kids. I mean, I don't have kids, but I've got a lot of friends and family that do, and I love hanging out with my nieces and nephews and those kinds of things. And it's just such a small tweak on that same message about that was a poor decision, as opposed to, you know, you've been bad or whatever that the alternative is. But I can straight away see that and I guess the way that you frame that, and look, I know I'm just talking about everything that you know inside and out, but I've had this realization right now. It actually is a great learning lesson at that point. When you say that was a poor decision, that's not a scolding. That's reminiscing on, the kid goes, all right, what was the alternative? What could I have done differently? As opposed to just feeling, oh, you know, I've let dad down, or I've, you know, I'm an idiot, or that sort of line of thinking. So, man, I absolutely love that. That's, that's powerful stuff. Anyway, sorry, Nathan, I'll let you jump in.
Nah, that's perfect, mate. And I mean, what do you think it is? Is that because I don't think it's a malicious thing. Sometimes it is, man. Sometimes you've got some asshole people out there, but I think a lot of it is, it's just delivered flippantly, and they think it's humorous or something. Like, so is that just a bit of education, or is that like a generational difference there? Or
my experience so far is that it's educational. Now, I had the good fortune of marrying somebody who is an early childhood specialist, so I got to kind of see the stuff up front and talk about it with her long before we ever had kids. I also got to marry into a family that was very proactive and deliberate about it, and get to see how they operated firsthand, and how they did stuff at their house was just jaw-dropping to someone like me. It's like, what, you can do this? Like, you can just talk like this and it's okay? Like, you can, God forbid, love your kids? Oh my God. I'm like, wow, that's crazy. Which is interesting because, you know, in high school, the group of guys I hung out with are still my best friends to this day. We all still hang out when we can, and we keep in touch and everything. And that's, you know, 25 plus years now. And we all stuck together for those 4 or 5 years, however long, you know, we were all, you know, doing our thing. And all of us in one way, shape, or form had to come together as our own family to kind of get through what else was going on at home, which is something I, again, see in my school visits all the time. And I think that, you know, based on all of that experience, they're making, most of those guys are making the same choices we are. Like, they were able to kind of step back and say, okay, why did my parents or my family do things this way? Yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to roll like that in my family, which has been great. All of us have had good fortune there. And in addition to being able to see, you know, an early childhood specialist up close and see how the choices that parents make impact our kids. I then got to work as an early literacy specialist for a few years and got more education and training on that myself, to the point where, you know, one of the groups that we work with had these little refrigerator magnets, and literally all they say on them is ways to praise your kid. And it's this little list of like, good job, way to go, you did this, you know, very short little phrases that if you're, you know, a cranky old guy like me, you don't think to say them, and you need that little reminder. Like you see it every day, like, oh, I should tell my son, hey man, good job, or yeah, that was good effort, way to go, you know, all this kind of stuff. And I think I don't think it's generational. I think it's very easy to take that road and say, oh, boomers, rah, or whatever. Like, okay, fair. But no, none of us really, unless somebody had told me what was different, what the alternatives were, I probably would not have done it. I really don't think I would be able to do what I do now if I wasn't shown what the alternative was. So I would veer a lot more towards education than generation.
Cool.
And that means
mate.
that we can all do it too. We can all do it. We can still learn. It's never too late. Like, well, it's too late. My kid's 14. No, then start now. Then start today. You know, it's not too late to start changing that relationship. 100%.
And a lot of that obviously just comes from conversations being had like this as well. I think one great thing that I think a lot of people are witnessing is there's a lot of stigmas being taken away from subjects that perhaps haven't been spoken about in an open forum. And so I think we're seeing a lot of positive changes, albeit probably a little bit more slowly than we'd all like to see. But man, I'm the eternal optimist. So I think we're tracking in the right direction.
I think so. I think there's a lot of positive changes that are happening. I think people who grow up in a certain way, you know, you're either going to follow in those footsteps or whether you like to or not, or you're going to make deliberate changes. And that's, you know, where you take a personality like Gary Vaynerchuk, for example, who is coming at this and saying things that is having a huge impact on the world. And by, you know, saying things that none of us maybe have heard before, or saying them in such a way of like, wow, so I can do this. And he's kind of like saying, yes, you can, shut up, go. What are you doing here? You know, versus no, you need to be a lawyer and you better just hunker down and do that, or whatever the case may be. And so I do think there is a sort of a groundswell of movement to change how we're dealing with kids overall and with our own in particular. Yeah, I would totally agree with that.
And yeah, you had the distinct pleasure of speaking with Gary V not too long ago, Tom. So that was literally the perfect setup there. Thanks for that.
You bet, little bump set.
Yeah, perfect. Nice little spike. But yeah, it's funny. Jason and myself, big fans of Gary as well, Tom. So talk us through, I guess, your conversation with Gary, which people can find online on Tom's LinkedIn as well. So go and check it out. But you know, you came to go with the question. He gave some really decent advice. What's happened since speaking with Mr. V?
Yeah, Mr. V, man, changed. I mean, it's funny because he'll just say it sometimes. He's doing this Tea with Gary V thing because of the current lockdown here in April 2020, just for timestamp purposes. So he's at home too. You know, he can't go anywhere either. So he's been doing this 2-hour thing like Monday through Friday, I think, where he's going live and just taking people's questions. And I had the opportunity to get on, which was fantastic. And one of the things he'll just say point blank, like, you know what? I'm going to change your life right now. Are you ready? I'm going to change your life right now. Do this. And like the people who are doing whatever he says, yeah, it's like totally changing everything. So yeah, he had me, gave me some great advice, and I took it as best I could. And, you know, in a very, very short amount of time, my email inbox just lit up with about, I think at last count, 200 emails, not counting Twitter followers and Instagram followers and LinkedIn followers and private messages. Like, just absolutely blew up, which was fantastic. So I've literally spent the last 2 weeks just hustling as hard as I could to keep up with those, to get back to everybody, to get people signed up for my writing group, to talk about other opportunities that they have in mind. There's people like I found just since the call, just since I had this thing with Gary V, I have sold the rights to an independent film producer in Hollywood for one of my novels that I've like spent 10 years. I've had this book, and finally someone's like, hey, I saw you in Gary V, do you have anything? I'm like, this? He's like, cool, I want it. I'm like, okay. So now we're in
That's
development for a
amazing.
movie. Yeah, totally at left field. I have a guy from Serbia who's like, I'm an artist. I want to do something with you for free. I'm like, no, you don't. Like, no, seriously, let's make a comic book. Okay, so
What?
now we're in the first stage of making a comic book with this guy, so ton of just weird, crazy stuff like that of people wanting to just help out. And the cool thing about it, I mean, it's all cool, but one of the things I'm noticing very, very quickly is the vast majority of the people who have contacted me, we all are attracted to the Gary V brand, as opposed to the other different types of guys like this who are kind of online, you know what I mean? And as a result, a lot of the same mindset. Everybody I'm talking to on Zoom and over the phone, on email, we all have kind of a central way of looking at the world and how we want to operate as people and as business people. And that makes these conversations a lot easier, and having that touch point makes things just flow really smoothly with all these guys. So it's been a crazy trip, and it's nowhere near over from what I can tell.
Yeah, that's so cool. I love the idea of someone reaching out to you to do artwork and the movie thing. Holy shit, that's amazing.
Yeah, like,
you must be so excited. Yeah,
I am. I'm super excited.
And I think that's really cool that I guess the follow on from your conversation with Gary V2 is that it inspires so many other people. So if they can see you take a leap, if they can see you, like, there's something that connects them to you through Gary V, then they see you take that advice, follow it the whole way through. Like this conversation, this interview is a direct result of that situation. Nathan was motivated. He was inspired by your story. Long time listener, first time caller type of situation. And look, here we are now. And I love that. I love that whole sense of community that Gary brings with him, and the fact that we, 1 minute he's talking to a lawyer, the next minute he's talking to a recently homeless guy, and he still has the same messaging the whole way through, but it still rings true. And I think one thing that he does very, very well is his intent and his humility, his honesty as well, is always on point. He's always just he's going to say the right thing, whether you want to hear it, need to hear it, whatever. He's going to say what's right for you right now, and he's not. He says it time and time again. He's not veering too far off the same story every single time, but timing's key. Obviously for you, like you said, this whole situation with coronavirus has actually given you an opportunity there to reach out to a guy that you would have been too busy to reach out to. And likewise for him, he may have been too busy to ever cross paths with yourself. So I love that. So tell me from your end, Tom, I want to stick on that whole sort of community thread. How have you found, obviously, especially being a novelist or a writer, there's a pretty strong community out there of, I guess you always see the stories of the struggling writers and guys that are battling through with all these great ideas and trying to get them published and those kind of things. How have you found your community sort of dove into this since your conversation with Gary V?
That's a great question. Writers often the picture, as you're talking about, is of the struggling writer kind of working by themselves in some kind of dark little cave somewhere, or at their coffee shop with their
exactly what
manual typepwriter, right? And
glass of scotch.
Right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. And that's actually one of the things that I talk about with. Cause I get to do a lot of writing classes. I've taught online for university, and I've done a lot of like one-off classes for conventions and conferences and stuff like that, which is one of my favorite things to do. I love doing that kind of stuff. And that's actually one of the things that I always kind of take a few minutes to talk about with the students and the published writers, is to disabuse them of some of those notions. We have a tendency as creatives as a whole to, I think, isolate whatever our creative thing is from the rest of our life and say, well, I'm a painter, I'm a writer, I'm whatever, I do video, I do whatever your creative kind of thing is. And then I go home and deal with the kids, or I do my day job, or I, make dinner and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, no, if you think that your full-time job or your relationship with your spouse or your kids or your boss or whatever is not impacting your art, guess again, bro. No, it's your whole life. And I've experienced it myself, and I've had too many stories told to me about people who thought they could kind of put their creativity, their art in a box and leave it there and not be impacted. And it always goes wrong. You know, whether it's financial or emotional or spiritual or physical, whatever. Like, so the scotch, like, cool, you can have your scotch, whatever. But if you think you're going to be one of these cigarette smoking alcoholic artists, you know, whatever, like you can give it a shot. You'll be dead at 60. I want to be here and enjoy my books, dude. Like, I want to keep going. So
you're going to enjoy your movie when it comes out.
Right. Exactly. So I think in a lot of ways that sort of image is in the process of changing. For creatives as a whole, we're starting to pick up on, like, you know, I should probably take care of myself. If I'm really serious about how much I enjoy my art, then I should be around to enjoy it and enjoy it as best I can. And one of the great things about our current level of technology is having, you know, conversations like this and being able to connect with people all over the planet, and work through some of those issues, as well as, you know, the art business and craft of whatever it is that we're talking about, whether it's writing or painting or whatever, graphic design, you name it, music, you know. So I think, yeah, having the communities and the community that we're kind of building is everybody's working on something different. Not everybody in the group is writing a novel, for example. Some people are doing screenplays, some people are doing comic books, and then some people are doing nonfiction. They're doing blogs, they're doing business writing or whatever. And what's cool about that is the principles of what we're doing are all still valid. They all come into play. If you're going to be you're going to write a blog, or you're going to write something, you know, on Medium or for your company or whatever, well, it should be a story. It still has to be a story of some kind, because that's what grabs people, and it has to be authentic. And that's, you know, I mean, for me, that's kind of the bottom line of any of our art pursuits, is as soon as you phone it in or you're doing it for the money or whatever, and I've done it, don't get me wrong, we've all done it, and it's okay to pay rent. It's all right. That's fair. That's not a bad thing. But you still have to come at it from a perspective of, you know, how can I serve people? What's the best way to do that? And what kind of value can I bring? And having the group together that is of similar mindset helps keep that in check. And you just can't beat the encouragement either. It's so good to be surrounded by people who are interested in the same things and can be supportive, and not do it in a, yeah, no, that was great, mate. That was super. Like, no, it sucked and we got to fix it. Come on. No one's going to publish this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's cool. It's a lot of fun, but they're critical. I think they're, yeah, absolutely critical. Trying to do anything in a vacuum is going to be tough, I think.
Tell us about, while we're on it, mate, tell us about the subscription service you've got. And I'll be honest, for anyone that's got any sort of dreams or aspirations to be a writer in any sense, spoke a little bit about what Tom's offering. It's nothing. It is, as far as price and value.
Yeah.
Oh man, you should be charging 10 times this amount. But anyway, tell us a bit about what you're offering and how you're helping people worldwide.
Sure. So I've got a Patreon page, which is basically, if you haven't heard of Patreon, it's a subscription service. You're subscribing to a person, essentially. A lot of musicians are doing it. A lot of people like that, people who are creating something on a regular basis. So you sign up. It's based on the idea of, back in olden days of when artists have a patron and say, well, I'm going to give you, whatever I can't think of an artist now, of course, Galileo, or not Galileo. Who was the Sistine Chapel guy?
Michelangelo.
Jesus. Michelangelo. So cut that part out. Michelangelo. I'm so well educated.
Dude, I had no idea. Okay. Cheers, Jason.
That's all right.
Okay, good. Thank you.
It's the only thing I remembered from high school.
This is why we have a community.
That's right. Prevent that. Oh, circle around. I love it.
So you take Michelangelo, who's like, well, somebody's going to come in and say, I'm going to pay you, $50 a month, and I'm going to commission you to do a Sistine Chapel or a sculpture or whatever. And so Michelangelo said, great, I'm going to do that. And when I'm done with that, I now have funds to live on, and I'm going to go do the stuff that I want to do, kind of thing. And that's the idea behind Patreon. So our group is a writing group. It's, it veers fiction, but any kind of writing is absolutely welcome. It's $5 US dollars a month, which I don't know what that amounts. It's probably pretty close. I think it's in the ballpark for Australia as well. And what we're doing is every week I post a sort of a resource page. It's going to have a web link, a recommended book, some kind of writing tip or technique kind of thing. Trying to think what else we put on there. We're actually kind of, I mean, it's organically growing right now. So I'm kind of trying to listen in on what people are looking for and you know, talk about what their ambitions are, what they're working on. And as part of that, one of the things I do is in fact, I'll be doing it tonight. Every Sunday night, I do a Facebook Live called First Page Sundays, where I'll read a page from one of my novels, whether it's published or unpublished, and then critique it. And then we have other writers email in one of their first pages, and we'll critique that live on the air and talk about it and get feedback from people who tune in and that kind of stuff. And my Patreon group is the first place I look for that kind of extra stuff. So I've got people from there sending in pages, and we kind of talk about them live. And then very soon we'll also be doing private Zoom meetings with the whole group, probably once every couple of weeks or once a month, and just talk about, you know, what are you guys working on? Do you have any questions? And it's that one-on-one sort of Q&A kind of thing, which I love, because everybody, you know, there's storytelling things that are all going to be the same or similar, that like principles that I think we should all follow.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, this person, you know, Jason's going to be like, well, I'm at the point where I've finished my book and now I need to find an agent. What do I do? Which is going to be different than Nathan, who's like, dude, how do I start chapter 1? You know? And we can talk about both of those things on a private chat or something like that. So it's going to be sort of a wide ranging, what does everybody need? And then addressing kind of on an individual and group level what we're doing. I got to work on my elevator pitch. That took way too long, but
no,
it's a cool
brilliant.
writing group. Very cool writing group.
So if I were to say, Tom, how do I jump into this? So it'd be patreon.com / Tom Leveen, TOMLEVEEN for November. Patreon.com / Tom Leveen. And for those that missed that one, patreon.com / Tom Leveen.
Love this show. It's a great show.
Hey, I've got a quick question for you, Tom. Just in regards to that Patreon group that you're growing at the moment. I mean, first and foremost, and look, Nathan and I are both salesmen in our everyday lives, so you are charging way too little for those services. But hey, you can work up to something. But it sounds like great value for money. And I know if you know, for any aspiring writers out there, I can't imagine they could get that kind of access to someone with, you know, that's as published as you, that's so active in the community. For such a great entry level. I think it's such a brilliant idea. Tell me, have you noticed, and look, I understand that this is growing and you know, over time this will potentially change, but what would you say is the biggest challenge that you find when you talk to people in your community? Like, is there a common thread? And I know you said that I'm sort of leaning, I think, would confidence for young writers or for aspiring writers, I shouldn't use the word young, is that a big thing, and potentially learning how to take criticism and sort of pivot on an idea? I'm just really intrigued to see what you see, I guess.
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, confidence for all, I mean, I still have it. And we talked about it on Gary Vee's show of like, I suck. And people like, it's difficult because on the one hand, I know for a fact there are people who are going to watch the show or listen to me or whatever, and who are going, oh my God, do you know what I would give to publish a book, let alone 9? And it's like, yeah, but if you pull back the curtain, I'm at home going, oh my God, I can't get an agent anymore. I can't publish another book. I suck. Clearly I suck. Why didn't I sell enough of these copies? Why didn't I? And, you know, and the person who is quote unquote more successful than me is saying the same thing about their New York Times bestseller. You know, it's this endless thing of like, am I good enough? Can I? So I think that's systemic. That's just, you know, human nature, number 1, part of the artist's journey, number 2, and certainly with writers. Yeah. I mean, I've had friends, you know, that I've talked to who made, and it's funny because when we talk about it, they'll just blithely sort of say like, well, you know, I sold these first 1 million copies. And then I'm like, yeah, must sucks to be you. Yeah, that's tough. I'm so sorry. And yet the same person, you know, within a year ended up, you know, sprawled out on the office floor, completely broken down because things didn't go the way they thought, you know? So yeah, confidence and self-image, self-esteem, I guess, for lack of a better term. And we could pivot and go right back to talking about parents, but we won't. That's definitely, that's definitely a big part of it. But I think the thing that I keep seeing is that the people don't know what they don't know. They don't know the questions to ask in the first place, which once you've become a professional at whatever it is that you do, you forget how much you know about stuff. You forget some of the lingo that we use and some of the terminology and the way that the industries work that we just happen to be in. And we just start sort of assuming everybody in the world knows that. And like, no, they don't. And so it's useful for me actually to be working with writers and authors who haven't published yet or who are early on that journey, to remind myself like, oh yeah, we still got to back up and start from this point instead of that point. And so yeah, that's one thing. Man, you said something else that I want to make sure and hit on it now. I can't remember exactly what it is, but I would say, yeah, because it's not lack of education, it's lack of, where do you start? Because you look at Stephen King, you look at whoever, and you're like, wow, like, so what should I do? Like, well, the easy answer is you open your laptop and you start writing. Okay. And I take that for granted now because I've been doing it for so long, but for somebody who hasn't done it yet, but they've got that story that they want to get out. And do they know if they're telling it in the right format? Like, dude, maybe your story is a comic book, or maybe it's a movie, or maybe it's a series of blog posts, or maybe it's a video. Maybe it's something you're doing your own and you're not even a writer. You don't have to be a writer, but we're all storytellers. I'll tell you that right now. Every human being on earth is a storyteller without doubt. It's just a question of how do you want to get that story out, and then maybe a little bit of help crafting it. Because I do think, particularly right now, we need them. We absolutely need people's stories. This moment in time with the virus, like, we need a record of this, and we need everybody's record of this, because it's going to be important later on. You know what I mean? Anyway, I feel like I sidestepped the question.
No,
but
no,
did I
not
answer
at
the
all.
question?
Yeah, you did, mate. You did, absolutely.
Okay. Good.
And I can imagine there must be a lot of people out there, well, hopefully, that are going to listen to this and go, I feel encouraged. I feel confident and comfortable that I could, sign up to Patreon for you and get some real value out of it. Yeah, that's right. And feel like that sense of community straight away, and understand that there's no, like you said, you don't know what you don't know, and there's not a problem. The biggest problem you're going to have with that is not trying to do something about it.
Yeah. And that's something, that I see a lot, particularly when I get to do the convention. Like, we have different Comic-Cons and stuff like that I get to teach at, which is just so much fun. But having this kind of access again, I think like Gary Vee kind of taught me to do 2 weeks ago, basically, that's what people are getting. There are writing groups out there, and they can be good. I've been in them in the past, before I was published and after. But there is a big difference between being part of a group, and I see this all the time, being part of a group where you share your work, whether it's a page or 10 pages or whatever, and then you get feedback, and the feedback is, yeah, I didn't like it, or yeah, that was really good.
What are you supposed to do with that? Yeah.
What do you do with that? That's nice to hear, but doesn't help you. Versus, oh yeah, chapter 1 didn't really flow very well, and this character was a little bit wooden or cardboard or whatever. Your dialogue was awesome, so let's keep that. Now we need to increase the pace, and you know what you could probably do? Put some more hard returns in there. It's like, oh my God, like, it's really that technical. You can drill down to white space. I'm like, oh yeah, how you manipulate white space on a page is a huge part of your storytelling. And how did you know that? Can you Google that? No, because you didn't know to Google it. So that's one of the things I think that's great about having someone who's been in that trench before and knows some of those things, and knows whether or not that's something you should even be worried about right now. Because maybe it's not. If your first question is, how do I get started? Okay, we're not going to talk about white space. We're going to talk about developing this idea. Let's start there, and we'll move forward. So yeah, it's a lot of those things, and it's fun, and it's totally fun, and it should be. I believe the group we're building right now is going to be a safe space for everybody, regardless of what their skill level is, and regardless of what the things they're pursuing happens to be. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, it's awesome.
I wanted to ask you this more from a selfish point of view, I guess, but
yeah,
just straight in there, mate. Straight in there. I'd heard you speak about the importance of the first 5. Do you think that
Yeah.
that's a simple tweak that a lot of people miss the mark on?
Oh, probably. I mean, I did and still do. The idea of, and I'm not the person, I didn't come up with this, but the idea is the first 5 words, first 5 sentences, first 5 paragraphs, and first 5 pages are something that we need to really pay close attention to. And kind of almost as soon as you hear it, you're like, oh yeah. Like if you're sending off something to, whether it's a literary agent to get representation, or an editor, or a reader, man, those first few words had better grab them, and they better grab them fast. Now, readers, generally speaking, are going to show a little bit more patience than perhaps somebody who's like watching a television show. Like if you think about it, you turn on a TV show, how long are you going to stay on that channel and dive in? Like you've got what, maybe a minute, maybe 2, and boy, they better grab you or you're done. Like that's it, moving.
Yeah.
So readers are a little bit more patient, but not much, not anymore. So yeah, having what's the best, absolute best way to start the book or the story? What's the best place to start it? I think I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but frequently when working one-on-one with a writer, chapter 1 starts way sooner than chapter 2, or should have started. Very frequently, you can cut chapter 1 entirely and start the story at chapter 2, because we tend to think, well, I have to tell them all of these things before the story gets going. And the reader is like, no, you don't. I need to know you're a Jedi and you're being hunted down by Boba Fett. Move on. Let's go. You can tell me the other stuff later, And one of the great things, like, right, I just dropped two terms and you guys knew where we were, right? Bam, done. That's the kind of speed and clarity we want from those first few pages. Like immediately, I know where I am. I know where we're going. Here we go. Not easy to do. It takes a lot of hard work to train yourself to see it in your revision, I think. But yeah, did I answer your question? I feel like I went totally
100%.
off the rails.
You gave a bit extra time. Is what we're after.
Yeah, Tom,
All right,
that's actually got me. It's actually got me thinking about my elevator pitch in my day-to-day job and how I can get to chapter 2 more quickly. So, I'm going to work on that. I love it.
And that's, again, going back to the, I'm not asking everybody to write a book. I'm not preaching that everybody needs to write their book. Like maybe you shouldn't. There's some of us that really shouldn't write a book, and that's okay.
Yeah, I'll put my hand up for that.
But but I do think that whatever, if you're for those people who are like in marketing and advertising, for example, like, yeah, that's the thing. Like, you got to tell me that story. The advertisements that we respond to are the ones that are telling a great story that we can see ourselves in, and phrasing things in such a way where, somebody has a problem and this was the struggle and this was the solution. Bam, bam, bam. Well, that's a story. No matter how you cut it, that is a story. And the organizations and companies and individual writers who figure that out are the ones who I think do best. Some of that's branding. Like we opened the show talking about Vans and Nike. Well, Vans is telling a story and Nike's telling a story. They're different stories, and that's fine. They shouldn't be for everybody. And I'm going to go Vans and you're going to go Nike. Great, cool. But the stories were consistent. They stuck with those, and I think that's how it ought to be. Hey, Beans. Hi.
I was sick and mommy goes away.
Oh no!
What's happened?
Oh no!
Oh no!
We had some issues. I don't know what her story is, but it's pretty rough.
Yeah.
There we go.
I know a Patreon group
okay?
she should join.
Okay. God, she probably will. I know. Better? You okay now?
Yeah.
Okay. Should I set you down? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, Beans. We'll see ya. Be safe.
Little cameo.
Yeah. She has no problem with that whatsoever. She is that kid. Like, hey, what's going on, everybody?
That's awesome.
I don't know where she gets it from.
Yeah, we've been delving deep, and that part of the video will get the most likes from everything else. So
Right.
she's stolen the show.
Totally okay with that.
Yeah.
Really keeps it in
Not opposed to
perspective.
that every once in a while. Oh yeah, it does.
Look, I think I'm aware of holding you up too much longer, mate. I thank you for dropping all these value bombs. But what are maybe I won't assume, are there maybe one or two lessons that you've received along the way, or maybe that you've discovered yourself that you perhaps whether they in hindsight should have been a bit more obvious, or I'm drawing a bit of a blank here. You get the question I'm attempting to ask here.
I think so. Yeah.
Got it. Nailed it.
Nailed it. Yeah, no, I think I do. And it depends on which area of life we're kind of talking about, I suppose. But I can tell you a couple things. Number one, nobody has it all figured out. That's the thing. Like, and no matter how, quote unquote successful somebody may be, they're still having the same doubts and wondering as much as everybody else. Now, I don't know if Stephen King loses sleep anymore, but I wouldn't be surprised if every once in a while it's like, God, is this a joke? Like, have I just fooled everybody? I wouldn't be surprised if that happened every once in a while. It's not about the money. He talks about that in his book On Writing, which I recommend for every aspiring author, regardless of if you're a horror fan or a Stephen King fan or not. You really should read On Writing, because he's very upfront and honest about that. And he says, if you're in this for the money, then you're a monkey. Like, that's you can't be. You just can't be. And in terms of money, I mean, that's one of the things that I always talk about with my students. Yes, Beans. I don't know where Toby's shoe is. But keep looking. It's out here somewhere, though. We'll find it. Okay, keep looking. It's around, sure. Problem, struggle, solution.
I'm loving the story.
Right there.
I'm loving the story. I'm assuming they were a pair of Vans that she's looking for.
They might be.
Yeah.
I don't. We're gonna hashtag the shit out of this, right?
Yeah,
So
100%.
If I get some van sponsorship, dude, that would be.
Let's think bigger, Tom. I think if you can bring out your own limited edition Vans like Gary Vee did with K-Swiss, I think that's where you need to be.
Yes. I'm so on board with that. That would be so great. I'll just be the face with the beard, I'm answering a question, Beans. Can I handle that real quick? And then we'll do our... I know, they're lovely. I love them. I'll be right back. I'll be right there. Let's see. So, lessons along the way. So that's something else that I think a lot of aspiring writers don't understand, is that not only is it not about the money, but there's not a lot out there. We see the Hunger Games, we see Stephen King, we see, whoever else, these top tier, like stratospheric level authors. And that's less than, 0.1%. Everybody else is way the hell down here. And I'm trying to think just off the top of my head. I think in my personal circle of friends who are published, I can think of one or two maybe who that's their full-time job. Almost everybody has either a part-time or full-time job, or they married money. Smart. And I don't mean, not rich, but it's not my wife is employed full-time and she loves her job, and that's cool. And that has really allowed us flexibility that not everybody has. And that's just the reality. I think that one of the things that I always talk with my students about, and we'll definitely be talking about on our Patreon group, is the money. Because I wish I could cite this, and I'll just tell you that I'm not the one who came up with this phrase, but somebody at some point said, writers talk about art and authors talk about money. And the first time I heard that, I was like, that is the most obnoxious, entitled, whatever, that's so stupid. Then I published, and then I found out writers talk about art and authors talk about money. Because we cannot talk about all of this without acknowledging that we are in a business. And that never gets talked about. When my cool book comes out and it's like, oh, look at this brand new shiny book, and you go to the bookstore and you see your book on the shelf, everybody look at my book on the shelf. Oh, it's so great. And you spent 10 years of your life working on it or whatever. And you're just so everyone's proud of you. And you know what the publisher calls this? A unit. Yeah, this is a unit. Yeah. And their job is to shift units. That's it. Not that they don't love you. Not that they don't, want that, that they don't think that they're not working in your best interest. Although sometimes they do and sometimes they don't. But at the end of the day, that publisher that you've been spending so much time to reach and to get to, they are a business and they are there to shift units. And as a creative, you have to have that third eye where yes, during my writing time, I need to be the storyteller. I need to be an artist. I need to put everything I've got into crafting a great story. And after I've done that for the day, I need to change that hat and be like, okay, now from a business perspective, is this book marketable? How am I going to market it? Who's going to do that? How much, do I have a marketing budget? Because chances are good the publisher isn't going to, statistically speaking. The publisher isn't going to be there doing it for you. So you better learn how to do that right now in conjunction with all of your creative pursuits. So I think that's one of the main things that I would answer your question to, Nathan, that again, people don't know that they don't know yet. And I am happy to share that with them because it will make the entire journey so much better. If I could go back 10 years and say, dude, Tom, here's what I need you to do now before you sign that contract, I would have more money. I would have more peace of mind. I would be so much more at ease with myself. I'd be so much more at ease with my career. And there's not enough of that in this industry. So that's one of the main things that I really want to give people. Yeah, I think I answered your question, Nathan.
Yeah, all
Absolutely.
Jace,
Good. I'm glad.
Yes, Nathan?
how are you, mate? You enjoyed it?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good.
Taking notes.
Sorry, Tom.
I just seen you writing stuff down. I was like, oh, he's going to jump
No,
in.
I am. I'm thoroughly on board the Tom Leveen train right now. So I'm just making a few notes for myself. Sorry.
Yeah, just sticking with that
Good,
real
I'm glad to hear it.
selfish kind of train. We're both on board.
100%.
Tom, have we missed anything, mate? Did you want to bring something up or?
Man, I don't know. I'm sure as soon as we hang up, I'll probably think of a million different things.
I mean, there can always be a part
encourage...
2.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, let's do that. We'll absolutely do that. I would always, you'll always be closing. That's the important part. Always be closing. But nobody tells you that. That's one of the things is you think as writers, as creatives, we think, well, we're going to go write our song or record our song or write our book or do our art or whatever. And it's just going to take off and Random House is going to do all the work. And I'm just going to hang out and write books all day. Like, no, you're not. You got to get in there and mix it up. So anyway, having said that, yes, you should all go to Amazon or your local bookstore. I would prefer you go to your local bookstore. I'll say, okay, here's another one. Here's a bit. Writers don't know how important bookstores are. And we've got 2 independent bookstores here in town that I work with and I've been working with ever since I got published. And these people are hand selling my book to people who come in. And you can't pay for that. There's no amount of money you can do to buy that. And they do it because we have a great relationship. And I've heard this story before where, somebody comes in to this particular bookstore and they're a jerk to the cashier thinking, well, you're the cashier and I'm whatever, and then a couple years go by and their first book comes out. And they come back to the bookstore and like, hi, I'm so-and-so and I want to do my book launch here. What do you guys think? And there's the cashier going, oh, sorry, booked. And like that happens. That absolutely happens, and for good reason. So do not. Bookstores are absolutely the first place writers should be. We should be reading. We should be buying books. We should be going to author events, which are almost always free. Sometimes you got to buy the book or something like that. But I mean, that's a beautiful opportunity for anyone of any genre to go and craft, one good specific question. Like don't go to an author event and ask, how do I get an agent? Like you can Google how to get an agent, but go to this bookstore event, go to an author event and say, hi, quick question. How do you handle love triangles in your story? Or, whatever it is, something that's a little bit more specific. And we'll be happy to talk about it, So yeah, bookstores are huge. I would love for you to buy all of my books right now. Stop what you're doing and go buy all of my books, preferably at a bookstore. Amazon is okay, but we would prefer local independent bookstores as much as possible because they are our lifeblood, without a doubt.
Cool. So bookstores, ladies and gents, hit up Tom Leveen's books. Otherwise, Amazon's still okay. You get a pass mark there. So Amazon, Tom Leveen, spelled TOMLEVEEN. And again,
that's three E's, mate.
You said together.
Yeah.
He said LEVEEN.
Did I? Take out one of those E's. Take out one of these E's.
Do the whole thing over again.
All right. But for all you aspiring writers and anyone that I guess just wants to, even if you just want to fill a bit of time, there is no greater value here. Hit up patreon.com/Tom Leveen, TOMLEVEEN.
Perfect.
Bam.
What I'm going to do as well, Tom, is I'll tag you. I'm actually going to write to Vans and pitch them on having a Tom Leveen shoe, which I just think they need, man. So Vans,
they do. They really do.
Space.
Absolutely. When Social D came out with one a couple years ago. I'm like I think about 2 pairs. So like, well, I'm going to wear the one pair now and then save the other pair in case I can never get them again. I'm going to be buried in those shoes, man. No question.
Perfect. All right, Tom,
So
cheers
good.
again for joining us, man. Ladies and gents, go check him out.
Thank you.
All right, Jay, it's been a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you.